This is the Untroubled Author, where creativity meets contentment and connection. I'm Lorna Tedder. Today, in Ep.2, we're talking about writers who use AI tools, particularly for those of us with disabilities, and examples of ways to untrouble yourself. There's a lot of polarization going on right now regarding using AI tools in the arts, specifically creators using AI tools to assist their own work, whether in how they create their work or how they market it. I have a unique perspective on AI and other emerging technologies based on my writing career under my own name and pseudonyms, and my work with game-changing technologies for 35 years. Maybe I'll explain more of the latter in a future discussion. In my writing world, if I mention AI, people want to come after me with pitchforks and torches and a lot of assumptions without asking me a single question. In my non-writing world, there's none of that. In fact, I tend to get some guff for being too conservative with protecting the rights of creators. Much of my non-writing work with emerging tech has been in the area of creating intellectual property policy and procedures and how to include both consent and consideration. Consent being the legal term for used with permission, and consideration being the legal term for payment. As with all emerging technologies, policy and law usually get sorted out after the technology causes problems in these areas, and it's painful in the transition from a past you cannot go back to and a future that's not yet settled. Such is the nature of most transitions. I see these AI lawsuits as overall positive because they help to determine how AI will be regulated. I promise I'll talk more about IP and policy in the future, as well as to give you insights into how IP becomes an issue in other technologies and what to watch for with AI. I'm not an attorney, but I have written, negotiated, and administered multi-hundred-million-dollar contracts for 3 decades. So I do have experience and insight I can share. By the way, I don't do consulting anymore, and I'm not here to sell you anything or take your money. I just have something to say. Personally, I find AI as a technology both exhilarating and terrifying. I say that as someone with more experience with it than watching science fiction on TV and in the cinema. My impressions of exhilarating and terrifying are found in both my decades as a writer and creator and my decades of working for government agencies. I've been able to use my experience as a longtime published author to push for more rights for creators and to pay them well for voluntarily giving up their rights to others in certain subject areas. IP was something most of my non-writer colleagues couldn't spell 5 years ago. 10 years ago, I was one of very few non-lawyers who understood rights and licensing in that career field, but only because of my prior book contracts and copyrights. So, if you're here to come at me with those pitchforks and torches for being AI positive, then I'm pretty sure of 2 things. 1, you have no idea how I use AI tools, and 2, you assume that how I exist in my physical body is literally the same or better than how you exist in yours. I use AI tools primarily to help me with things I used to be able to do easily, specifically related to my eyesight, but sometimes old injuries from my early 30s too. Until now, only one family member has been aware of my eye problem, and I don't go advertising it. But hey, maybe my confession here will help someone else in a similar situation who would otherwise give up and never publish that manuscript on a shelf or the one they've half finished. If you think we must all suffer for our art, let me tell you that there is definitely a point where rather than suffer, you will give it up. Also, if you believe that suffering is necessary, I invite you to take a deeper look at why you believe that. I assure you that therapy can help with that self-limiting belief. Been there. As for my particular physical barriers, they're probably not yours, but the point I'm making is that other people have difficulties that aren't yours and mine, and you and I don't know about those difficulties and don't need to know. None of our business. They deserve to be able to create and market their art, don't they? Or should people with disabilities just give up? Whenever I have a guest in my home, one of the first things they notice is the 4 or more pairs of prescription glasses in my home office by the door. I have my computer glasses, my driving and looking at the stars glasses, watching TV or having dinner with friends glasses, sunglasses, etc. It's critical that I don't strain my eyes. I work super closely with my eye doctor on finding good solutions. Even while wearing my funky computer glasses, I will experiment with different color backgrounds on my computer, blue versus amber light, large eye-friendly font, different room lighting. Those glasses are all tools so that I can remain productive and so I can joyfully create my books. When I strain my eyes, I cannot read, write, watch TV, anything. I'm basically in bed with my eye or eyes shut for days until I'm not crying constantly in pain. If you're near me, my strained eye will look like it's peeling. It's not. It just looks and feels that way. My eye doctor says he sees maybe one case a year of this rare condition I have, around July or August, and yeah, that's me at my annual appointment. I'm his rare case. Yay for me, right? Eye drops and a focused effort not to strain my eyes usually do the trick, but that's easier said than done. So let me tell you a few of the ways that AI tools have kept me from giving up on the manuscripts I've written pre-AI. In November 2011, I decided to participate in the National Novel Writing Month. It was my first time. I suddenly had an empty nest at home. I was traveling a lot during that season, and when I was home, I tried to stay in shape by walking 10 miles a day. The purpose of National Novel Writing Month is to focus on how much you can write in a month if you carve out tiny bits of time. I wrote just over 50,000 words by dictating while I walked or drove. Dictating stories wasn't new for me, and the apps weren't great. I'm not even sure we called them apps then. I'd found time to write while recording myself on mini cassette tapes when the kids were babies, and now they were in college, and I had so many stories to tell. In particular, I had come up with an idea in 2002 for a series I called The Secret Lives of Librarians. The first story for that concept was published traditionally by a major New York publisher in 2006 as Dark Revelations, which I later renamed Dark Revelations of Joan of Arc when I finally got rights back a few years ago. Dark Revelations had been written as women's action adventure with a romantic subplot and a Dan Brownish twist for an imprint that decided to close down for reasons unrelated to my book before my book was published. The imprint did shut down a couple of months after publication and left me stranded. So, in limbo land between a prematurely shut down imprint and the years and years it would take to get the rights back from my publisher, I decided to write a new book during National Novel Writing Month. This one would feature the 20-something daughter of the middle-aged heroine from Dark Revelations. I could do this because I own my characters in Dark Revelations and had written that ownership into my contract with my big publisher, something pretty much unheard of then. So I didn't have to wait to get my rights back to write or publish the daughter's story. I dictated 50,000 words in November and finished up at around 175,000 words in late spring and hit a wall. My other career was suddenly going crazy with new work. I didn't have time to sit and transcribe and edit the book as I had when the kids were little. I had Dragon speech recognition software back then, pretty pricey, but it never worked well enough for me. After I had a serious trachea infection in 2004, my voice has never been as strong. Dragon speech recognition software may work well for others with southern drawls, but not me, especially when dictating fiction. I would change my voice for each character and really confuse the software that I'd trained on my voice. So instead of relying on software to give me crappy transcriptions, I would hire an assistant to transcribe for me. That was around 2007, after reading Tim Ferriss's first book, The 4-Hour Work Week, in which he talked about hiring out the mundane processes in your life. A little help here and there wasn't too expensive and freed up a lot of my time. When I finished hundreds and hundreds of audio files of my Secret Lives of Librarians that I had intended as a long serial, back before serials became as popular as they are now, I handed them over to a virtual assistant to transcribe. Things at my day job went even crazier as I got promoted into a really good new position. It was that autumn before I was able to pull out the transcribed files to start my revisions before sending them to an editor. I had already read through the first 4 or 5,000-word chapters, and they looked really good. My transcriptionist had even formatted the pages correctly. I would revise one chapter a week and share it with my boyfriend, who was my enthusiastic first reader. It was a sweet part of our relationship then, having that kind of support from him. until I caught him cheating. Not only did I end the relationship, but I didn't want to touch my manuscript for the next couple of years because it reminded me of what was really going on while he insisted he was my biggest fan. I moved on. I wrote other books in the Secret Lives of Librarians universe. I moved on from him too and decided to pull out that manuscript and the transcriptions that had cost me a small fortune. So much of the librarian novels were related to things that happened in that manuscript, and I needed to get it revised and published. Well, not so fast. I reread the first 5 chapters and loved it. I read the 6th chapter and loved it. I opened the document to the 7th chapter, and oh my God, the boyfriend wasn't the only one cheating. At this point, the chapters were suddenly no longer formatted. They were also useless. Apparently, my transcriptionist, now long since paid and disappeared, had run my audio files through untrained speech-to-text software, and while some sentences were recognizable, most weren't. I had 145,000 unusable words of a completed manuscript. I put away all those files and decided that the book would probably never be published. I thought about it several times, but trying to read back through it and figure it out or re-listen to the old audio files both took way too much time and quickly resulted in eye strain. So I gave up. In the summer of 2023, an acquaintance on social media mentioned having OpenAI's Playground transcribe their regularly dictated files. Would it work for me? Oh God, I hoped so. I pulled several Chapter 7 audio files and dropped them into OpenAI's Playground with a prompt to transcribe and format it. Suddenly, all the words in the output made sense. Unlike the garbage files my paid transcriptionist had given me before vanishing, I haven't sent all the files to AI to transcribe for me, not yet, but my quick experiment tells me it's now entirely possible to start publishing this story this calendar year as my other projects have room. And that makes me so happy because I would totally give up on a story I love if I had to go back and read through all that garbage of a transcription. So, what else might I do with AI that would keep my eyes from hurting? 2 things primarily, other than cleaning up decade-old plus audio files. 1. I take the audio transcriptions and proofread my revisions to them before the book goes to the editor. Proofing is one of those things that is painful now. I literally cannot see a missed period at the end of a sentence when my eyes are hurting that bad. I had been using an editing tool, but it doesn't catch everything, and I recently overdid it, and during an eye strain, updated and uploaded a book that had already been edited but needed some minor updates. After my eyes had healed, I looked at what I had uploaded and was appalled at what I'd missed. Number 2, I've written enough books in the librarian's universe that I couldn't remember some of the early ones. What was the name of Aubrey's ally who helped her escape with the Joan of Arc artifact? Where did she and the bodyguard turned lover take cover when they were on the run? The monastery, the castle? What happened to the gemstone that heightened her empathic senses? Ugh, I couldn't remember after so many years. I needed a series Bible, as it's called, to remember what's what and who has which eye color, who's tall, who had which trauma and which drama. About 3 years ago, I hired someone to read Dark Revelations and create a series Bible for me, beginning with that book and then moving on to the others in the librarian universe. I conducted a thorough interview process through a reputable company and hired a reader to make a Bible, beginning with the first book, to be completed in a week, then the second book, until I had the entire Bible done in 2 months. Although she had plenty of 5-star reviews for her work, my hired reader and Bible maker wasn't reliable. And yes, I do hire lots of assistants who are stellar. She was not one. AI tools do tend to replace most easily the task where I got sloppy work. She did finally deliver the Bible for Dark Revelations in the format I gave her. After 4 months, seriously, one 75,000 word book in 4 months of me begging her to finish it when she'd promised it in a week. I decided not to send her another book to add to the Bible because it would take her years and cost me thousands of dollars. I just threw up my hands and stopped. Of course, prior to my eye problem, I could create a Bible myself. I'm not going to strain though, so now I can drop either single chapters or entire books into an AI tool and get a chapter by chapter summary, an entire outline, an analysis of my writing, additions to my character sketch templates, a list of tropes, themes, and genres, and tons of info to consider for my marketing plan. Without stressing myself, I'm able to add at least 2 books a week to the Bible that I don't have to reread and risk an eye strain for. I'm excited to see how AI tools can help other writers who are weary of fighting illnesses and injuries and disabilities to create. I'm sure I'll find more ways to use it to boost me when something is holding me back. Right now, it's able to remove some of the things that have troubled me, and since I seek to be happy and untroubled, hey, I'll take it. I'm Lorna Tedder, and I'm wishing you significantly fewer troubles.